Are you interested in studying past events to understand the present condition of society? Historians study past and present cultures, trends, traditions, events, and natural disasters. In this video, we're going to help you answer the question, should you become a historian in 2021? We're going to go over the latest salaries, job market statistics, the personalities and interests of historians, and more. Coming up. Hey everyone, Stephen Hack here with Career Watch, where I help you with your career search. If you have been enjoying the video, hit that thumbs up to support the channel. And if you are a historian, definitely let us know in the comments below what you enjoy and what you dislike about the occupation. Historians have a number of roles and responsibilities. They conserve and preserve manuscripts, records, and other artifacts. They gather historical data from sources such as archives, court records, diaries, news files, and photographs. They conduct historical research. Historians organize data and analyze and interpret its authenticity. They research the history of a particular country or region, and they can also take part in translating or requesting translation of reference materials. As you'll see later in the video, a lot of people that major in history or get a master's or PhD in history, they end up teaching. But first, we'll go over the wages and salaries of historians. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, in 2019, the average base salary for a historian was $68,690. This is less than a lot of similar occupations. In 2019, this was more than survey researchers, who on average earned around $66,000, but it is less than economists, geographers, history teachers that are teaching on a post-secondary level, meaning after high school, and sociologists. But the good news for historians is that their base salaries have been increasing over time. In 1999, the Bureau of Labor Statistics recorded $41,350 as the base salary for historians. This rose to $68,690 in 2019. So over these 2 decades, historians saw a total wage growth of $27,340, and this comes out to about $1,300 per year. To be fair, some of the similar occupations I showed you before, they have a little bit higher wage growth than historians, many of them. If this historical trend for wages for historians continues, in 2021, the average base salary would be $71,294, and by 2029, the average base salary would rise to $81,709. One of the variables that plays a role in the compensation of historians is geography. Certain states tend to pay geographers more money than others, and this could be because of the industries in certain states or universities in different states. But the Bureau of Labor Statistics found that certain states tend to pay more. In 2019, the highest paying state for historians was the state of Alaska, where the average base salary was $100,460. Other high paying states include the state of California, Maryland, Hawaii, and Utah. Meanwhile, the government found that the lowest paying state for historians in 2019 was the state of Arizona, where the average base salary was found to be only $58,340. So there's quite a gap between how much historians made in Arizona and how much historians made in Alaska. And this could just be due to work environment, because certain work environments and certain industries and organizations tend to pay historians more than others. In 2019, they found the federal government pays historians on average the greatest amount of money, with an average base salary of almost $98,000 per year, whereas professional services was around 65, state government around 53, and local government ended up only paying historians around $31,000 per year. So there's quite a gap in pay among these different organizations and work environments. You also see this in the distribution of wages among historians. At the 10th percentile, the pay is around $30,000, whereas in the 90th percentile, the pay is around $115,000 per year. And what really seems to affect this is work environments. Historians that work for the federal government tend to make way more than other historians. So that covers the compensation of historians in 2019. What is the job market like for historians? Is it challenging to get a job as a historian? To become a historian, you need at least a bachelor's degree. According to the Occupational Information Network, 20% of historians have a bachelor's degree, 24% have a master's degree, and then they just have 56% as other. And I'm not sure if this means doctoral degree or education beyond a master's degree, but in general, just understand that you at least have to have a bachelor's degree to become a historian, and you probably need even more education because the job market is pretty competitive, which I'll get into in a second. The first thing to understand is that the workforce, the number of employed historians, is tiny. In 2019, the government found that there was 3,040 employed historians across the country. And this is kind of a little bit on par with the number of employed geographers and the number of employed sociologists. there's only a couple thousand of these employed across the country, whereas there's far more employed economists and there are far more employed survey researchers. And what's interesting is to look at the number of employed historians against the number of employed history teachers teaching at a post-secondary level. This means teachers teaching beyond high school at like community colleges and universities across the country. There's about 7 times as many history teachers teaching on the post-secondary level than there are employed historians. And more bad news for historians, the number of employed doesn't seem to be rising over time. The government found in 1999 that there was about 1,510 employed historians. This hit a high in 2008 of 3,700 employed historians, and since 2008, the number of employed historians has been falling. By 2019, the government found that there was 3,040 employed historians across the country. Over these 2 decades, there was a gain of 1,530 jobs, which comes out to about, on average, about 73 jobs per year. But really, since 2008, there hasn't been much job growth for historians. If you were to take this average over the 20 years, by 2029, there would be 3,769 employed historians. This is taking the average over the 2 decades rather than the past 10 years. Whereas the government is not optimistic about the future job market of historians. They're anticipating very, very flat growth, around 0% growth for the number of historian jobs over the next 10 years. So by 2029, there would probably be around 3,100 employed historians. And like many occupations that have very small workforces, this is a very regional occupation. Certain states are just completely off limits. They have very, very little job opportunities. In this map, all the beige colored states have no data associated with them all, meaning there's maybe a couple historians employed, but not very many at all. The government found that the state of California actually has the greatest number of employed historians across the country, with about 240 employed historians. And the lighter blue states tend to have more employed as well. But keep in mind, if you want to live in one of these beige colored states, employment opportunities might be kind of limited. You can also look at the number of job postings, and to do this, I use Indeed.com. Indeed pulls in job postings from many different sources. I used 3 different keywords to search for historian jobs, and I only searched in the job titles of these job postings. So if historian showed up in the description, I would ignore it because it kind of gets rid of a lot of the bad job postings. So the 3 keywords I used were historian, historic, and historical in the job posting. And I found that there was about 252 hits for these 3 different job keywords. So this can kind of give us an idea of how many job postings a historian could work in. So we can compare this to the number of employed, 252 job postings against 3,000 employed. So there's a little bit of competition, but there are jobs out there for historians, especially compared to the workforce. But just keep in mind, even if you can't become a historian, many historians end up teaching on a post-secondary level, and that's always open to historians. The other thing about being a historian is you are more often than not going to be working for the federal government, the local government, or the state government. You're going to be working, many historians work for government, and only about 15% work in the professional services industry. They have 47% as other, which seems like a lot to me. Not sure what that's about. Maybe they're working in higher education. So finally, we get to the interests and personalities of historians. To figure out your RIASEC codes, there's lots of free assessments out there, and this is a good way of comparing your interests with people in different occupations. According to the Occupational Information Network, for historians, they tend to score high in the investigative and conventional themes. People that score high in the investigative theme tend to describe themselves as thoughtful, analytical, intellectual, and curious. So it makes complete sense that historians would score really high in this. They also score high in the conventional theme, which makes a lot of sense. People that score high in the conventional theme, they hate chaos. They love organizing information, and they tend to be practical, conscientious, and pretty careful. This makes a lot of sense that these 2 interests would be high for historians because they love researching and learning new things, but they also like to organize this and make it accessible to other people. So as you can see, there are pros and cons to becoming a historian in 2021. Similar occupations tend to earn a little bit more, but they have seen a little bit of wage growth over the past 2 decades. Also, different organizations tend to pay historians very different amounts of money. The average base salary for historians that work in the federal government was found to be around $98,000 per year, whereas local government only pays in the 30,000s per year. The job market also is pretty challenging for historians. The workforce is tiny. There's only around 3,000 employed historians across the country, and many of them are in California. This is definitely a very regional occupation. If you're not open to living in one of those states, this occupation might not be for you. But historians also always have the option of trying to become a post-secondary teacher, and there are almost 7 times as many employed post-secondary teachers as there are historians. Are you a historian? Let us know in the comments below. Let us know what you enjoy about this occupation, what you dislike about this occupation. Let us know down in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.